Hello, beautiful people, and welcome back. My name's Lindsay, and I'm here with yoga director Kate, and I'm going to be interviewing her as part of our interview series today, just to get to know her a little better and her journey with yoga. And Kate doesn't know what I'm going to ask either. So, Kate, first question, what made you take your first yoga class?
So, my very first yoga class I ever took was at a 24-hour fitness at a gym in Hasbrook Heights, New Jersey. That is actually,
I know the one,
I think it's closed now, unfortunately, because of the pandemic. But I had a health issue in my early 20s. My lung had collapsed, and I was like in the coming back from that, I guess, stage. And physically, there was a lot of like, just exercise-wise, there was a challenge with it. But I had heard of yoga, and I was like, all right, well. It was after a Zumba class that I had been late for, so I couldn't take that. So I jumped into this yoga class, and I was like a total disaster. Like, could not do anything. Like, couldn't hold the plank pose. People were like lunging and moving and doing all the things and arms, like all of it, and I had no idea, and I was like behind in everything that we were doing. I couldn't touch my toes, like all of the things. Could not do anything, but I remember getting to the end when we were laying down for Shavasana, and the teacher was talking about breathing and just like controlling your breath. And for me, having this like lung issue that I had, that was a part that had felt so scary and out of control for me. And it was the first time since dealing with that issue that I was like, I have control of this now. Like, I'm okay and grounded. And so I loved it. And then I didn't come back for 3 months. And I went home in my living room. This is back when like you like did like actual, it was like before Netflix. Like, I'm talking like cable on demand exercise stuff. Like really, I'm dating how old I am now. But I did like yoga videos and DVDs in my apartment for 3 months until I could barely touch my toes and I could hold a plank pose, so I didn't feel, and I like knew what some of the poses were, and then I went back to a class, which I never recommend now as a teacher. Like, people should just do a beginner series or something. But yeah, that was my first yoga class experience.
Wow, great. And then, so what made you take that leap from being a yoga student to then taking your first yoga teacher training?
Such a good question. So I ended up, after that, like practice, I moved to Hoboken, where our headquarters are now. And I was pretty regular yoga student. Patrick, co-yoga director, was actually my first studio teacher when I came to Hoboken. And I was showing up to his class pretty regularly, and I was in a job that I was pretty unhappy in, and as a result, I think was feeling very unsatisfied in my life overall, and kind of on this like, what do I do next journey? And I would come to yoga and like lay on my mat and cry and be like, what do I do next? And how do I make myself happy? Over and over and over again. And then again, I was laying in Shavasana and asking myself that question, which I had continuously asked myself for weeks. It was in Patrick's class, and I was like, how do I make myself happy? What do I do? And I swear it was like the universe was like, duh. And I was like, oh my gosh, I need to do a yoga teacher training. That's what it is. Like, I should be a yoga teacher. And I spent the entire walk home from that class being like, how am I going to tell my husband? I had just finished like a bunch of graduate coursework, and I was like, how am I going to tell him that I'm going to invest now in becoming a yoga teacher? And I had a whole plan by the time I got home about like how I was going to afford it on a payment plan and how I would make that money back, had my sales pitch, and I signed up like a few days later.
Amazing, I love that. And then, so after you graduate this yoga teacher training, what was that transition like of starting to teach yoga classes? Did you jump right into it, or were you still working on the side?
So I was still, at the time that I graduated, I was still working in my previous job, my previous career. But the studio that I trained at had an apprenticeship, they called it. So when you graduated from teacher training, you had the option to sign up for this. And it was, you got paired with a more senior teacher who kind of mentored you throughout the 6-month period, and you were given the opportunity to teach classes at the studio for free. So like, students didn't have, you wouldn't get paid for them, but the students didn't have to pay for them. They were community classes, and it gave us the opportunity to teach and learn. And so I jumped right into doing that because I knew right away that I wanted to teach. And I like hated it. For the first 5 classes, I absolutely hated the experience because I was, my previous career, I was a high school teacher. So I, as a teacher, was very aware when I was doing a good job and when I wasn't. And for my first yoga classes, I wasn't. They were just like really not sequenced well, and I felt really nervous and unprepared. But I knew that this was something that I wanted, so I just kept showing up even though it felt really hard. And by like class 6 or 7, I was like, okay, I like this a little bit more. I see a path where like I will eventually be good at this. And so I just kind of never, since then I've never stopped.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And then last question, just a bonus question
boy.
here. If you could give one piece of advice to a yoga student that's either in a yoga teacher training or about to graduate their teacher training, what would that advice be from what you know now? Like, or if you could give yourself at that time any feedback or advice, what would it be?
I think the biggest thing would be to believe that you have something to teach and to offer. I think when you're in teacher training and you're around other teacher trainees in your community and you're learning from your teachers who are now trainers, right? Which means that they have a pretty good level of experience teaching. They're the people you end up comparing yourselves to. And when you're brand new to becoming a teacher, you're never going to know, and you shouldn't know as much as the people teaching you, right? At training you. But it's very hard because for me, I was like, but I'm not as good as like my teacher trainer or whatever. And of course. But that doesn't mean that you don't have something to offer students. And the students coming into your class, it might be their first yoga class ever. And the fact that you've dedicated 200 hours or more to learn this material means that you have something to teach the people in your class. Even if like another yoga teacher comes in to take your class, you are going to bring with you your life experience and your journey and your story and offer something that will be able to serve every single person that walks into that room. And I think as a student of yoga, I've always had that. Like I've taken classes that I didn't love the class, but I always learned something.
Yeah.
Like even if it's like not my favorite class, the teacher comes with like a cool quote or something, a personal story that like makes me feel connected to them. So I think the advice would just be like, have the confidence that you have something to offer and do it, show up as you and just share that because you never know how much you're inspiring someone.
Yeah, I really love that. And that actually reminds me, when we did an Instagram Live a few weeks ago, somebody commented, like, there are no original messages, only original messengers. Aww. And I really love that because I think that's really, like, what you just said, like, you know, you're not teaching anything new, you're not reinventing the wheel with your yoga class, right? Everyone knows all the asanas, but you're bringing something fresh to it because you're the messenger that people have come to listen to. So just really
I love that.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I remember that. You
So,
can follow us on Instagram at
yes.
YogaRenew Teacher Training if you're not already.
Great. Well, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope that you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did, and be sure to subscribe to our channel for more content like this.